Well, Jacques Delors was a towering political figure, and he ran the European Commission for 10 years, of course, never having to trouble the voters of Europe. Goodness gracious me, no. I regret slightly that I missed him in the European Parliament by a few years. I'd have enjoyed doing battle, but there's no doubt he was the one who very publicly sold the vision of the euro. Well, as today marks 25 years since it was formally introduced, it's a good moment to ask whether it's been a success or a failure. And to debate that, I have with me in the studio from the Daily Telegraph, Matthew Lynn, financial columnist, and from the London School of Economics down the line, Professor Ian Begg. Gentlemen, I can quite see, from Germany's perspective, why 25 years on the euro has been rather a success. But I look at countries like Italy and even worse, Greece, and see them being trapped in a currency, having lost control of their interest rates. I wonder, Professor Begg, for the Mediterranean, it's not been a great success, has it?
I think there's not been economic success in these countries during the period of the euro, but it can be a mistake to say it's because of the euro. And therefore, you've got to look at what would happen in the absence of adhering to the single currency. And already by the time the euro was launched, Italy was embarking on a period of stagnation because certain persons such as Silvio Berlusconi were running the country in a way which was not conducive to better economic performance. In Greece, they had a period of success up to about 2004, but then it went from success to excess, and they were borrowing far too much. They had a huge balance of payments problem. Again, it's very difficult to say that's a directly caused by the euro. Instead, it's associated with the euro. And I think that distinction is critical in trying to understand whether or not the euro is a success or not.
I understand that point. However, countries like Greece were given completely the wrong interest rate when they joined the currency, lost control of interest rates. And I just wonder about the sort of democratic element of this. I mean, we're used to the idea that we vote for governments in our nation states and they tell us what their economic policies are going to be. Somehow with the euro, don't nations lose a huge chunk of their democratic rights?
They lose control over monetary policy. That's unambiguous. That's the whole point of joining a single currency. But let's not forget, it was a Greek government and an Italian government that were desperate to get into the euro. They were elected on a mandate of joining the euro. So to say that somehow the fact that they joined and found it was not as easy to run their countries when they had a separate monetary policy is making a different point.
OK, I get the point. Matthew Lynn, to me, I mean, I completely take Ian's point that Italy was entering a stagnant period and was coping with, using lira devaluation as a way of dealing with things. But I mean, do you see this as an economic success? Do you see the Eurozone as an economic powerhouse in the world?
Definitely not. I mean, I think, I respect what the professor was just saying there. But, I think if you go back 25 years, and it's making us feel a little bit old, isn't it? 25 years, quite already. How time flies when you're having fun. But anyway, when it was launched, there were two big claims made for the euro. The first one was that it would challenge the dollar. And that was a very explicit goal, that it would overtake the dollar as a global trading currency, the reserve currency. You go out, you're Malaysian, you're Thai, you'd be paying for your oil or ship cargo in euros rather than dollars, and that would have significant economic benefits. And two, that it would make Europe more prosperous, that it would turbocharge growth. You'd have deeper capital markets, you'd have more competition, you'd have fewer transaction costs, all the rest of it. And these were the big claims. So, 25 years is kind of enough time to measure the success of anything, isn't it? So on the first one, challenging the dollar, not even close. I mean, I looked it up 2 or 3 years ago. The share of global reserves of the euro is actually less than the old Deutschmark used to be before they got rid of it. So it just hasn't even begun to challenge the dominance of the dollar. In terms of making Europe more prosperous, absolutely not. It's rough. It's probably not a coincidence that Europe's relative underperformance vis-à-vis the US, which used to be roughly equal for most of the post-war period, started with the launch of the euro.
Yeah, I mean, Ian Begg, again, we can apply the same argument, I guess, that, maybe these things would have happened with or without the euro. Professor Begg, are you still there?
Yep,
just a final thought from you, though. We had a huge debate in this country on whether we should join the euro or not. Tony Blair made that pledge of a referendum before we joined, and he never dared hold it. Has not joining the euro been a great escape for us?
It's been something of an escape because we were the least good fit for the euro. The studies done, particularly by Gordon Brown when he was Chancellor, showed that in a number of criteria, we didn't fit very well with the euro. So in that sense, yes, it was correct not to go in at the time. Curiously, the Swedes are the other country which did a major study of hundreds of components of this, and they too have opted not to join. But for the others, I think you can't ignore the political dimension of creating the euro. It was a pact, in a sense, between France and Germany, unification for single currency. And that political dimension is very often neglected when we say it's been a failure or not the success it could have been.
I agree with that 100%.
Look at that.
I agree with you 100%. It was always far more political than it was economic. And that was one of the reasons that we opposed it, Matthew.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, it's an honest point to say it was a political currency, but the price has been a huge one. So if you look at something like, a country like Italy, Italy was actually quite successful beforehand. We were a little bit sneering about it in this country. It actually overtook us in the late 80s in terms of GDP per capita and overtook many other countries. But Italy's had absolutely zero growth since it joined the euro.
At this point, zero growth for 25 years is lost on many people.
That's absolutely extraordinary. If you look at, Greece went through the greatest economic contraction in recorded history, even worse than the Great Depression in the 1930s in the United States. These are not not minor flaws.
And
so you can say it's primarily political, and it's a heavy price to pay.
And finished up being told what their tax rates were to be, how much they could spend on their hospitals by foreign administrators of the euro, and the home of the birthplace of democracy had lost it completely.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, it's a loss of sovereignty, and if it made you a lot richer, maybe that'd be worth it. But if it makes you a lot poorer, then it's a serious question.
Well, you've lost your freedom and you've lost money as well.
It's not a fantastic deal.
It was a great escape for us, wasn't it? Not joining the euro was a great escape.
Oh, I mean, it was probably Gordon Brown's best decision. Was not to join the euro.
Well, there we are.
Although there is an interesting argument that having us inside with the city would have crashed it.
Yeah, not a very positive way of looking at things, though. Well, there we are. When somebody from the Daily Telegraph says Gordon Brown got something right, that really is interesting.